Now we move on to Web3 Security with Fireblocks. Salick, would you like to join us? Yeah, it's welcome into the stage. Thank you all for being here.
Thanks. I have a mic. Hey, everyone. Thank you. My name is Salick Cogan. I'm the head of the Web3 group in Fireblocks. To those of you who are not familiar with, thank you, with Fireblocks, Fireblocks is a custody technology provider for businesses and institutions. It basically lets businesses operate their entire digital asset operations, management, custody, treasury, compliance, AML, and other areas in a very secure way. We utilize MPC, encryption, and on top of this platform, we are building a lot of different groups that are tackling different areas in the space. One of these spaces, and this is the group that I come from, is the Web3 group. And obviously, Web3 has a very, very strong footing today in DeFi, but not only DeFi. We've heard about the NFT that you just got, and GameFi for new games that are being built on blockchain, and other interesting areas. So what I want to do today is put ourselves in the shoes of actually the hackers, the attackers, the malicious and bad actors in this interesting world, and try to see how they are looking at this space from their point of view, what they are seeing, what weaknesses are they looking for, and also what are they actually doing with these conclusions. So if we look at the amount of value stolen, and we have the data until the end of this Q, we can see that we're at record pace, right? We got almost $1.3 billion stolen in the first Q of 2022. We had a bit over 3 billion in last year, and so I think we're going to pass it, this year. And if we look at the structure of the funds that are being taken, we can see that DeFi is starting to take a really big part of these funds. So in 2020, most of the funds were stolen from centralized exchanges and private wallets. It obviously increased in 2021, and today we're almost 100% funds stolen in DeFi. And there are two main reasons for this. One is that the money is going into DeFi, right? This space is exploding, and tons of new funds are going there. And the other reason is hackers are going after the money, but they're also going after where it's a bit weaker sometimes. And because this is a new emerging space, there is still a lot to learn. So I want to start by trying to describe the ecosystem and looking at it from the point of view of the attackers. So if we take the Web App Flow, which is the traditional web application flow, which we now call Web 2, this is a very high-level view of this. You have a browser or a mobile device or even a developer calling some kind of API. This browser issues some request that reaches then the backend servers of some service. Usually it will be a company service, it will be a private server, which no one should have any access to. This backend receives the request, it does something, it does some business logic, it maybe writes data to a database and returns the response to the client. And if we think about it from a attacking point of view, we have two main vectors of attack here, right? So we have the left side, which is before the request reaches the company server, and we have the company servers themselves. But we know that the web servers are private. Now, if we look at the Web3 App Flow in this new ecosystem, it's a bit different, right? So first, you have the web application that sends a transaction to the blockchain, to, for example, a smart contract. But as you probably know, if you ever used a wallet of some kind, whether it's MetaMask or Wallet Connect or any other wallet, you know that you have to sign the transaction, right? So something pops up in your software, you approve it, it basically gets cryptographically signed, and then this transaction is being sent to the blockchain where it's being processed. Now, the difference here is, as we all know, blockchains are public, right? Everyone can access it. Everyone can see what is being done there. And the smart contracts that are running on the blockchains are also public. For most of them, you can even see the actual source code that they are built upon. You can see what they are doing. And this makes, from the perspective of the malicious actor, makes our life in a way easier, right? Because I don't have to find my way into a private server. I just have all the information there, and I just need to find a way in. So there are two other interesting aspects in the blockchain world, in this ecosystem, that we need to understand in order to get the full point of view. One is bridges. Does anybody know what a bridge is? Okay. So today we have a lot of different blockchains, right? We have the Bitcoin, Ethereum, we have Solana, Near, and a lot of others. And most of them are not connected by design, right? And usually if you want to transfer funds from one blockchain to another, you need somebody to bridge that gap, hence the word bridges. And there are basically two types of bridges. One is what we call a trusted bridge or a centralized one. So this could be an exchange, right? You trust a third party that if you'll give him your, I don't know, Bitcoin, he will issue you the Ethereum tokens on the Ethereum blockchain. And that requires some level of trust. In the world of decentralization, we also have what we call trustless bridges. And these bridges are basically built on smart contracts. So the setup is that you have, the very basic setup is that you have one smart contract in blockchain A, you have another smart contract in blockchain B, you send money to the smart contract in blockchain A, something magical happens, and the smart contract in blockchain B receives this information and gives you tokens on that blockchain. The tokens that you transfer to the smart contract on blockchain A are locked, okay? And so you basically now have assets on blockchain B, which are collateralized by the assets that are locked by the smart contract on blockchain A. And why am I telling you all of this? Because bridges hold a lot of money. And since they hold a lot of money, they are prone to attacks, because if I can attack them, I might be able to steal a lot of money, and we'll see a few examples later. Another very important aspect in the ecosystem is called oracles. Anybody know what an oracle is? Yeah, you all know everything. So we have a problem with the blockchain. The problem is that sometimes we need to access data that is not available in the blockchain, right? For example, I need to know the price of the fee, the swap fee between Bitcoin and Ethereum. Or, I don't know, I need to know what's the weather right now. Anyway, this data is not finite. It's only true to the moment that I'm asking for it. And because blockchains are supposed to be fully deterministic, meaning that if I run all the transactions in the ledger, I will get to the same state every single time, I'm unable to rely on external data sources that might change. So what oracles do, they basically solve this problem. They bridge the gap between the blockchain and the outside world. So they provide information as a data source to the smart contracts that are running on the blockchain. And why is this a problem? Because maybe if I'm able to hack into the oracle, or if I'm able to fool the oracle about the information he's looking at, I might be able to control what is actually happening on the blockchain. So this is another interesting attack vectors. So let's think about what type of attacks we have today. So the first and foremost, and the most common one that we have in the world today, regardless of blockchain, is phishing. Phishing is when basically somebody is masquerading to be someone else and is doing something that will cause you to give him your credential, right? So if I can send an email masquerading as I'm Facebook, I can tell you that you need to do something. You go, you click the button, a site that looks very familiar to Facebook shows up, but the URL maybe has 2.0 instead of 2 O's, but you don't notice it. You log in and boom, as a hacker, I now have your credential to Facebook and I can do whatever I want with it. So in the blockchain world, this is done in a bit different manner. The attacker will want to fool you into signing a transaction that is not doing what you think it's about to do, right? We saw it in earlier, every transaction needs to be signed. The other type of attack is what we call governance attack. I'm sure you've all heard about DAOs, decentralized autonomous organizations. Basically, for most protocols today, there is some kind of governance that determines how the protocol will evolve. So you can make an offer, a suggestion, a proposal, and if you get a majority that was defined according to the governance rules, it will pass. Okay, so I can determine if I want a 51% majority or 70% majority. It doesn't really matter. I can add any other condition, but basically it's a framework from which we can vote on something, and it will be accepted if all the prerequisites are being met. So think about that. If I manage to get the majority I need to pass a proposal, maybe I can pass a malicious proposal in the protocol, and basically nothing can stop me from doing bad things. Another type of attack, which is very coupled to the Oracle entity that we talked about, is price manipulation, right? We know it from the stock market. It's not something new. But if I can manipulate the price, maybe I can use this to gain a revenue or profit that I couldn't do otherwise. So if I can fool an oracle and tell him that the actual swap rate between two tokens is different than what it actually is, I can profit from that information. The fourth type is what we call smart contract exploitation, and if I compare it to the Web2 world, it's what we'll call 0 days. So these are exploits or hacks that are being found, which have only the person who found them knows that they exist, and he can manipulate and use them to steal funds. These are very sophisticated hacks, usually. And the fifth one, which is the basic problem, I think, that we have, that Fireblocks solves, is that your private keys are being compromised, right? So if I somehow hack into your computer and steal your private key, I can do anything I want with this private key now. So these are the 5 main types of attack. And what I want to do now is try to go over some of the more interesting hacks that we've seen in the last 6 months. will go from level of kind of low sophistication to the more sophisticated ones, and we'll see also how the amount of funds that are being stolen gets increasingly higher. So the first hack I want to tell you about happened actually 3 weeks ago, I think. We call it the GoDaddy attack. I think most of you know what GoDaddy is, but basically it's a hosting service. It provides DNS management services. And what happened there is that there are two decentralized exchanges, one called QuickSwap and the other called SpiritSwap, and they are hosting their servers on GoDaddy. So what the attacker did is they called GoDaddy, and they human social engineered them to think that they are the people who own those companies and those servers, and they got the credentials to the DNS management system. So what the attackers did right after is they went to this management system and they said, okay, if anybody goes to these domains, he will be directed to my servers. And these servers presented the same exact site, like in the Facebook phishing example I talked to you about. They showed the same exact site, only there was a really small difference. Whenever somebody went and swapped to 2 tokens, the call to the smart contract that was in charge of doing the swap sent the swap tokens to the attacker's wallet. Okay, so anybody that went and swapped his token, they were actually directly sent to the attacker's wallet. So it took them, by the way, the sophistication is low because it's a phishing attack and it's not really sophisticated in itself, but it requires some creativity, right? It's probably not easy to fool those GoDaddy representatives. And so after about 18 minutes, I read a postmortem by the teams. They figured out that something was wrong. They didn't really know what. It took them another 30 minutes because they were looking at the site and it looks the same, right? Everything almost the same. It took them another 30 minutes to understand that maybe there's a problem with the site. And then they tried to reach GoDaddy. They couldn't. It took them a few hours to reach them. And when they did reach them, they weren't able to convince them that they are the actual owners of the sites, which is a bit ironic. And eventually, after a day, I think, they managed to get the control back. Not a lot of money was stolen, as we'll see in other attacks. And they switched from GoDaddy, so they no longer use them. The next attack is something that happened on OpenSea. To those of you who don't know OpenSea, it's basically a marketplace for NFTs, one of the main ones today. It runs on the Polygon chain, which is a side chain of Ethereum. And this was also a phishing attack, but it was a bit more elaborate. So the way these marketplaces work usually is it's a marketplace for NFTs. So you go, you auction your NFT, you say, I want to sell it for $100 or Ethereum. Can make sense for some NFTs. And so you give the permission to the site, to the OpenSea contract, to sell this for 100 Ethereum. And then as a buyer comes by and tells OpenSea, hey, I'm willing to buy this NFT for 100 Ethereum, they do a match, they do the transfer. They take the NFT out of your account because you gave them access. They take the 100 Ethereum from the buyer and they send it to the seller, and we have a deal. So basically, when you go to OpenSea and you auction something, you are giving OpenSea, the smart contract of OpenSea, the permission to take your NFTs from your account for such and such tokens. And what the attackers did is they basically sent an email, a mass email to a lot of OpenSea users, masquerading as OpenSea, telling them that they're doing some maintenance and they need to switch now to a different smart contract. And So when they click the button, the wallet showed them a transaction they need to sign. And what this transaction said is basically, hey, I'm selling my NFTs for 0. Okay? And I'm selling it to this attacker, to this specific address. And then what the attacker did, they went to OpenSea and said, hey, I want to buy this NFT for 0. And they just swept all of those NFTs from the people that unfortunately approved the transaction. They stole about 1.7 million worth of NFTs. And this could have been easily mitigated if they knew what they were signing. And one of the problems today that we have is the wallets most of you use, that everyone use, are not able to contextualize properly what is being done. In most parts, you will see like a very long string of hex numbers, hexadecimal numbers. Most of us don't know what it means, and they just approve it, and that's it. The third one is also an interesting one. It's a governance attack. We talked about governance. Anyone familiar with the beanstalk farms? Yay. So that was actually a stable coin, basically, an algorithmic pegged stable coin, which is a swear word now after Terra. I think it collateralized itself with credits and not with actual tokens. Doesn't really matter. What happened there is that it's a protocol. It has its governance methods, and you can insert a proposal to the community, and if you get a majority of 67%, your proposal is approved and is applied to the protocol. So what our attacker did is basically he proposed 2 proposals. One was the legit one. It said, hey, let's donate this amount of money to Ukraine to help with the war, to help the people. And the other one was a malicious one. It said, hey, let's take this money and transfer it to me. And nobody really noticed. And what the attacker did next is he went and do you know what a flash loan is? So a flash loan is something really crazy and ingenious, and is only able to happen in the blockchain world. Basically, you can take a loan which is not collateralized. I can take a $1 billion loan, which is what the attacker did, without giving any funds as a collateral. The only condition is that in the same transaction, I need to give back the loan with some fee. So if I'm not able to give the fee and the loan back in the same transaction, the loan is basically canceled. So it never really happened. So what the attacker did is he went to, I think, Aave. He took a flash loan of $1 billion. He then did a transaction that took this $1 billion and bought the coin that is used to govern this protocol. And then he approved these 2 proposals. And then he just sent some money to Ukraine and then took the rest to him. And all of the money in the protocol basically got lost. So I think he needed 67% majority. He got like 80% majority, well over what he needed. And this actually could have been mitigated. First of all, of course, you can raise the bar of the majority, but you can also put a time lock. So you can say, okay, a proposal is approved, but it will take a week until it is executed, and maybe there's a way to review an approved proposal so you can undo it. There's all different kinds of mechanisms that I'm sure that after this attack will come into reality. So we're getting higher with the amount of funds being stolen. Oh, that's a nice anecdote. If you go to the Discord of this project, like 2 months ago, somebody asked them, the protocol developers, hey, isn't this susceptible to a flash loan attack? And they said, no, we're not worried about it. Luckily, we have this documentation. OK, going bigger, wormhole. I made the news, quite an attack. Wormhole is a bridge that connects Ethereum blockchain and the Solana blockchain. You send Ethereum, you send ETH to the smart contract in Ethereum. It's locked. You get wrapped Ethereum on the Solana blockchain, vice versa. What happened here is that there was basically a bug in the smart contract. And because the smart contract is public, the attackers managed to find it. And I won't go into the technical details, but they were able to steal quite a lot of money. And there's two interesting things in this story. So first of all, right after the attack happened, I think Jump, I forgot the name of the company that backs this initiative. They immediately sent the stolen funds back to the bridge, so the community doesn't leave the bridge. So that was a nice form of action. And the second thing, which is very interesting, when the attack happened, if you go to the GitHub of GitHub is like where developers manage their code. And basically, the fix to this problem was published to the code repository of this bridge, but it was not released yet. So there is a theory that maybe the attacker was scanning the commits, the changes in the code. He saw that they fixed this vulnerability, but it wasn't yet released. So he went and basically used this vulnerability because he found out about it from the protocol itself. Very unfortunate as well. The next one is also a huge hack. It's happened in the Poly network. Poly network is basically, I would call it a meta blockchain. It rules a few blockchain underneath. And you can basically use the Poly network to pass funds between different blockchains. So this protocol basically has a lot of different wallets in a lot of different blockchains with a lot of money in them. And what the attackers did, we don't know if it's a group or an individual, he managed to find a bug that made him an owner of one of the smart contracts in this protocol. And by making himself owner, he managed to basically just transfer money out of the smart contract into his account. And there was obviously a big fuss about this hack. And there's something really funny that is happening because, you know, in your regular heist movie, a robber usually takes the money and runs. And now here we can message with the attacker on the blockchain because it's anonymous. So the attacker published this message as a transaction on Ethereum, saying that the team offered them a bounty to get the funds back, but he never actually he never took the bounty, but he did return all the money back. I don't know what was his motive, but he had 600 million and he just sent them back and didn't take anything for it. That's the only thing I think that I know that something like this happened. So moving on to the latest, or not latest, but the biggest. This is now being called the biggest DeFi hack of all times until we get the next one. And Ronin Bridge is basically, you know, Axie Infinity game. It's a very popular game on top of blockchain. They have their own network. Again, a bridge. The attackers manage to get a majority of validators in the blockchain that decide how the blockchain acts. So they actually hacked into Sky Mavis, which is the company that is building the game. and they stole the private keys, so they had access to the private keys. And because there was another validator in the blockchain that, from a misconfiguration, had given his permission to the same validators that were hacked, they managed to get another private key. So now they had 5 private keys, and that's the majority you needed out of the 9 total validators in the network. And then the attackers could easily just drain all the money from the bridge. They stole a lot of money. This attack is attributed to the Lazarus Group, which is a North Korean hacking group, APT. You probably have heard about it. And they didn't leave a message or give back the money, unfortunately. So I hope that from one side that I won't have to add more slides, but I kind of want to, so to see if it can get bigger. And there were plenty of other attacks. I just chose a few. There are tons of money. We saw 1.3 billion only in the last 3 months. And another interesting question is, if you're in a heist movie, right, you see the plan, you see how they recruit the people, you see how they do the actual robbery, and then they need to get away with the money. But there's a problem here because although blockchain is anonymous, right, if I get the wallet address, I don't really know who stands behind it. I can still follow the tracks of this wallet, right? This wallet sends to this wallet, and it doesn't matter how far or how deep these transfers go, I can track them easily. This is like a key property of the blockchain. So how do hackers steal the actual money? And there are a few methods. One of the main ones is called mixers. So think about a mixer is like a washing machine or a black box. Me and you, we all go and we put in this box a $1 bill, right? And then other people come and take one other $1 bill from this box. And if anybody is looking at the blockchain from a transaction level, he can't really say that I, who put the $1 bill, is this person who took the $1 bill. It's a way to launder basically the money, right? So there are a few solutions for mixers today: Tornado Cash, Blender, and so on. You have other methods of basically, they are called private tokens, which are basically networks that enable you to obfuscate the addresses of the participants inside the network. So it's based usually on ZK rollups, on zero-knowledge proofs. But basically, what it lets you do is take the money, send it to a wallet. Nobody knows what is this wallet, and then you can take this money and convert it to something else and cash it to fiat if you want, and so on. Some of the central exchanges today, what they do is they start to block accounts that they see coming out of mixers. So it's a way to prevent some of this money laundering, but they won't be able to. They'll find other methods. So I'll end with this, which is more of a philosophical thought, or maybe in a thought experiment. So after a lot of these hacks happen, especially when you do something like price manipulation, there is the claim that I didn't do anything wrong from the perpetrator point of view. I looked at the smart contract. There is a set of rules that this smart contract follows. I just managed to gain an advantage on all of you and make a deal, right? I didn't do anything wrong. And we call it like code is law. The code of the smart contract is basically the law. So I didn't break anything. I just followed the code, and I'm a genius, so I managed to fool all of you. The other obvious reaction to that in the world is code is not law. Law is the law, and you can't manipulate prices. You can't do those things. Actually, price manipulation in the regulated world is something that is a criminal offense, so you can't really do it. And this debate I mean, if you spend time on the forums or on Twitter, it's a very hot debate. Not sure where it will end. And I think that's it. Thank you. We have a few minutes if there are any questions. Don't be shy. Yes?
I was kind of surprised you didn't put the compound thing in from last fall.
Yeah. So the question?
There was just one syntax item was missing. Compound, it's a good platform. Nobody saw it.
Yeah.
And they have this long process, basically DAO process. They had to wait like for a week or so until they could finally pause the contract. And all the money was drained.
Yeah, so the comment was about the compound hack that didn't make it here. I tried to take only like the recent most hacks, but that's true. There are tons of interesting hacks there. Yeah.
Looks like you didn't mention the biggest hack in history, the 30 billion case, Luna.
So the question was about the Luna case. I'm going to say no comment, no. But basically, I think it's debatable today if it was a hack or if it was a coincidence or if it was a George Soros kind of attack. But I'm representing here not myself, so maybe I'll stop at that. But we can talk about it later. Yeah. Yeah, so the question is, to those of you who didn't hear it, is if I'm a small company, I don't have a lot of resources, how can I interact with companies, with protocols, with smart contracts, where I don't have the capability to audit them? So I think there are two sides to this question. One is, first of all, as somebody who is issuing transaction, take a provider which will secure your private keys. That's the most basic approach. There are plenty of different solutions for that. But when you're interacting with the outside world, with other smart contracts, I think the best way to do it is go by first popularity, second, see, usually these protocols, they publish. It's their interest to publish the audits that other companies, this is exactly what they do. They audit smart contracts. Which other companies audited their smart contracts? So don't go on someone who didn't make an audit. Definitely don't go with someone who did one audit. You need to have a few. And still, it only lowers your risk, but it will never be zero by design. So, can you repeat the question? Oh. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so a lot of times with the smart contract securities, do you see the issue with like solidity? Because I've heard solidity is like C, we have memory bleed overs and a lot of issues with overflow for that.
So the question is there, I'll rephrase it, is there an actual problem with Solidity, and what is the way and best practices to write smart contracts? Maybe use OpenZeppelin. So I think the answer to the first question is 4 years ago, we found out about something called the Reentry bug, to those of you who are developing smart contracts. So it was a kind of a 0 day that from then people are aware. By the way, it still happens, but most people are aware of it. So I don't think it's a problem in Solidity as in the programming, but more of a design pattern that you need to be sure that you follow best practices. And I think what you're saying about OpenZeppelin, and definitely try to see what other people implemented, use forks. Uniswap has today 250 forks. It's probably very secure if you're going to build a swap dApp. So yeah, definitely use something that has a track record and good community around it. Okay, thank you very much.